So here's the thing about tier 1 vampires. They're basically a tutorial level of the vampire world. Think about games like Vampire Survivors or the classic Castlevania, where thousands of bat-like creatures spawn every second and die the moment your garlic aura touches them. You're not fighting individuals with unique abilities or strategies in this tier. You're watching a shitload of disposable fodder exist solely to make your character level up and cement classic rules. In Castlevania, one hit from like Simon's Whip or a splash of holy water and they crumble into dust. These creatures function purely as level obstacles you clear without thinking. Even the weakest sub-weapons in your arsenal destroy them instantly. The comedy angle takes this same vulnerability and runs with it. What We Do in the Shadows has Nandor struggling with email passwords while Laszlo argues about neighborhood politics, and one episode literally shows them nearly dying because they forgot about daylight savings time, which is crazy. They spend more time dealing with politics than hunting prey. Sure, they're immortal, but their complete ignorance of modern society makes them victims of everyday life. Hotel Transylvania turns Dracula into a worried dad who survives explosions purely through cartoon physics. The little vampire keeps things so gentle that the entire plot revolves around helping a vampire kid become mortal again through friendship. The biggest threats come from misunderstandings and the struggle to keep their existence secret, not from any combat ability. Then you get the more classic horror entries like the 2024 Nosferatu, where Orlok moves through shadows like a slow-motion nightmare, but remains completely bound by traditional rules we kinda see through all the vampire-based movies and shows. He needs invitations to enter, allergic to sunlight, and once someone confronts him with knowledge about his weaknesses, he's genuinely a punk. His power exists entirely in psychological terror and plague-spreading secrecy. The film makes it clear that a prepared human with the right knowledge can beat his ass for sure. This pattern shows up across parodies too, like Dracula Dead and Loving It, where Mel Brooks resets the rules scene by scene depending on what gets the biggest laugh. What unites all these vampires is their complete obedience to the classic rulebook. A single wooden stake ends them immediately. Sunrise turns them to ash, holy symbols send them running, and there's very little superhuman speed or regeneration to save them. They serve specific purposes in their stories, teaching players game mechanics, delivering comedic moments, or demonstrating why vampire hunters exist in the first place. Tier 2 shifts the energy completely, because now you're dealing with vampires that actually rack up body counts. Let the right one in drops you into this headspace fast when Eli, this tiny kid who looks harmless, suddenly tears through a full-grown man in that pool scene with zero hesitation. The camera kind of lingers on the brutality of it, showing you that despite the child form, this creature has physical superiority over any human it encounters. Fright Night's Jerry Dandridge brings the same lethal confidence but cranks up the theatrics. He walks through gunfire like it's confetti, shrugs off knife wounds, and uses charm manipulation to isolate his victims before striking. The 2011 remake shows him tanking a small explosion and still coming back for more. Yet throw him into direct sunlight or nail him with a proper stake, and suddenly, all that swag disappears. Blood Red Sky traps its viral strain vampire on a plane, turning the enclosed space into a pressure cooker where immense strength and feral healing become exponentially more terrifying. Priest shows hive vampires that crawl on walls and decimate entire outposts in coordinated attacks, yet they drop like flies under UV exposure or sanctified weapons. The Passage introduces similar virals with huge vertical hops and pack telepathy that make them nightmares in groups, but government containment protocols actually worked. Isolate one and it becomes manageable through carbon-based weapons and sunlight exposure. What separates these from Tier 1 is how confined environments and small tactics amplify their threat level without pushing them into world-ending territory. The urban predator angle shows up strong here as well. Night Teeth in Vampire in Brooklyn, one of my favorites, owns their territories through intimidation and careful hunting patterns, controlling specific neighborhoods and using nightclubs as feeding grounds. A girl walks home alone at night, follows a solitary vampire stalking bad men through Iranian streets like a supernatural vigilante. She's stronger and faster than any human she faces, but her threat stays personal. There's no army behind her, no master plan, just one-on-one dominance carried out in the shadows. Ultraviolet takes the ground approach by treating vampirism basically as an organism that feeds on blood type of mutation that modern scientists can track and suppress through UV tech and blood supply monitoring. These Code 5s win through infiltration rather than raw power, functioning more like bioterrorist cells. Then you have titles like Vampire Knight that adds the noble class hierarchy where academy politics and moral codes prevent outright massacres, keeping all their blood manipulation abilities confined within school walls. What unifies this tier is how they dominate humans in direct confrontation, but remain beatable through preparation and exploiting classic weaknesses. These vampires create legitimate body counts and control entire neighborhoods or contained spaces, yet their threats stay about street level. Stakes still work, sunlight still burns them, and smart humans with the right tools actually have a chance to win. Tier 3 is where vampires stop hiding and start building empires. If you lock in, you have about a 30% chance of survival here. True Blood throws you into a world where vampires have hierarchical systems with sheriffs, monarchs, and political structures that span entire states. These vampires aren't even hiding anymore. They use superhuman speed and glamour to dominate rooms full of humans and are more integrated into society, with True Blood being damn near an energy drink of synthetic blood so they don't bloodlust humans all day. The Blade trilogy sits at the center of this tier and takes the organizational pull further by turning vampirism into militarized crime syndicates with biotech engineering. Regular vampires overwhelm civilians easily, of course, but the second a trained hunter shows up with UV rounds or EDTA serum ready for the smoke, they crumble. Blade himself proves this perfectly, specializing as an ass-kicking hybrid that ducks no fades. Underworld pushes the militarization angle even harder, with century-old vampires wielding firearms, UV grenades, and tactical warfare experience. They're locked in to an eternal stalemate with Lycans because neither side can achieve total dominance, and Celine, playing as a cutthroat assassin, damn near tries to keep the entire system afloat. What makes this tier dangerous is how these vampires actually control territory. Day Shift shows multiple vampire classes infecting Los Angeles, with spider variants crawling on ceilings and southern elites manipulating neighborhoods. Guild-style hunter organizations exist specifically because the infestation scale demands professional response teams. Abraham Lincoln's Vampire Hunter reveals vampires infiltrating 19th century American economics and slavery from the shadows, manipulating entire systems. Yet Abraham's Silver Axe becomes the equalizer that keeps them confined to legend rather than letting them do whatever they want. Buffy the Vampire Slayer demonstrates how divine balance mechanisms like Slayers act as a built-in counter, keeping most apocalypses localized to the Hellmouth despite vampire members. Being Human and Angel show the flip side where vampires integrate socially, maintaining coven politics and blood hierarchies where guilt and morality prevent mass slaughter. Angel and Spike wipe out squads of demons in Los Angeles, but still dust instantly under sunlight or staking. Their humanity aspect restrains full destruction potential. Blood Plus shows us animalistic super speed predators that turn airports and military bases into slaughterhouses. Chiropterans scale fast through mutations, but specialized blood serums and intel-based warfare contain outbreaks before they spread globally. This tier nails the tension of visible warfare. Cities burn, governments notice, and the balance hangs by a thread. These vampires rule the night through speed, politics, and brutality, but they don't rule the world. Tier 4 is where containment fails and you're watching cities transform into hunting grounds overnight. Getting out of this, I'd say, is maybe 10 to 20%. Regular people are cooked. The centerpiece examples here are 30 Days of Night, I Am Legend, and Daybreakers, because they each showcase a different flavor of urban apocalypse. 30 Days of Night drops you into an Alaskan town during its month-long darkest, where packs of feral vampires coordinate like military squads to systematically depopulate the settlement. Basically a worst-case scenario for anyone trying to survive a vampire outbreak. The street massacre scenes show families dragged from homes while the pack moves with brutal precision, communicating and organizing hierarchies that elevate them far beyond anything in lower tiers. I Am Legend takes that urban annihilation and cranks it up to 11 by showing Manhattan completely overrun with dark seekers that hunt through ruins and learn tactical thinking. The tunnel ambush reveals they've adapted to survivor patterns, setting traps and coordinating strikes that reduce humanity to scattered daylight pockets. Daybreakers goes even further by flipping civilization entirely, where 95% of humanity converts and blood shortage collapse turns functioning vampire megacities into feral wastelands. The cityscape riots show a full operational economy crumbling when supply chains fall, with subsiders tearing through streets as industrial-scale solutions become humanity's only shot at survival. What unifies these vampires with the rest of the tier is the shift from isolated outbreaks to coordinated infrastructure collapse. The strain is packed with parasitic worms that turn victims within hours, creating hive mind networks where the master coordinates citywide sabotage. That insane subway outbreak sequence demonstrates how densely populated areas become pressure cookers for infection spread, requiring military-grade logistics and entire containment zones just to slow the advance. Castlevania's vampire generals are different than what we've talked about before. They bring the same coordinated devastation through night creature armies that sack towns using magic forges and logistics networks for prolonged big city sieges. V Rising expands into like this full empire building where vampire lords control provinces through castles and blood economies, with warfare revolving around night operations and the sun dictating campaign strategy. John Carpenter's vampires show similar mobileness led by masters that cleanse towns before dawn, with the ancient Black Cross artifact threatening to create daywalkers that would push extinction damn near citywide. The critical elements separating this tier from everything below is how governments notice but struggle to mount effective responses. Sunlight, UV tech, people that just so happen to be immune, and silver still work as hard counters, but only with industrial deployment and organized military intervention. You're not watching street-level hunters anymore. You're watching outbreak horrors transition into survival thrillers where humanity barely holds the daylight line. Entire towns fall in days, supply chains collapse, and the margin between controlled threat and total annihilation becomes razor thin. These vampires don't just dominate the night anymore. They're actively erasing civilizations one city block at a time. And to do all this at night is extremely impressive. Tier 5 is where vampires stop playing defense and start building empires that span continents. Surviving this tier is probably 3 to 7% if you're lucky. Everyone mentioned from here on out is overpowered and damn near broken hacks-wise. Circling back to the Underworld's elders and interview with the vampire's ancient bloodlines as focal points for this tier because they represent two sides of the same coin: physical devastation versus cultural dominance. Marcus and Victor command militarized vampire armies locked in century-old wars with lichens, using biotech and hybrid bloodlines to wage nation versus nation conflicts. Their awakening sequences show fortress takeovers, explosive battles, and regeneration that borders on invincibility until UV light or silver pierces through. Lestat and Armand flip this by ruling through seduction and psychological empires, controlling covens through the Theatres vampires, and manipulating religion, art, and fame itself. Lestat's rock concert Feeding Frenzy proves this point, how Mick Jagger level charisma becomes weaponized influence, turning vampirism into something people idolize rather than just fear. What separates this tier from city levelers below is how these vampires don't just destroy infrastructure, they replace it. Van Helsing's Dracula industrializes vampirism, using steampunk science to birth thousands of offspring and assault European capitals, commanding brides and minions in continental warfare until werewolf venom proves divine balance still exists. Blood Plus's Saya and Diva operate as biological queens whose bloodlines control mutant soldier classes across global theaters, spreading infection through airships in a literal genetic arms race. The Elder Scrolls vampire lords transform into winged monsters, wielding necromancy and commanding undead armies that seize entire provinces, establishing night empires through cults. Some of the most awesome visual abilities that I've seen to this point. Serum of the End's progenitors crush modern militaries with bloodlines that birth legions of subordinates, conquering human kingdoms, while divine weaponry and eternal politics stop them from cooking everything. Abigail bridges the gap between raw combat and psychic warfare, combining telekinesis with feral speed to shred entire squads in that ballroom massacre. The people locked in that house genuinely had no idea what was happening. Her hybrid traits show ancient lineage connections that elevate her beyond standard vampirism, though sunlight and distance still contain her threat to enclosed arenas. Penny Dreadful's Dracula manipulates Victorian London through plague control and faith corruption, shapeshifting through biblical settings until coordinated occult intervention brings him down. Legacy of Kane's elder clans wield blood sorcery and time war manipulation for regional conquest, requiring holy relics or straight up collapse to stop them, since mere mortals just can't compete. This shit was overpowered, not gonna lie. The unifying theme is scope. Nations straight panic, armies obey, and entire faiths crumble under nocturnal rule. Sunlight, sacred relics, and biological counteragents still remain something that can help, but deploying them is where it gets real, requiring coordinated efforts on scales that need to match the vampire's ambition they're trying to stop. Tier 6 is broken, straight up. Survival here is less than 1% to be real. This is where vampires transcend mortality and sunlight just stops mattering. The defining powers here are Dracula Untold's Vlad and Queen of the Damned's Akasha, because they showcase two pathways to godhood: elemental devastation and divine supremacy. Vlad commands bat storm control that engulfs battlefields entirely. He can even transform into bats himself and control them, which is crazy, and can also transform into mist to travel continents and deliver physical strikes that shatter castle walls and all kinds of shit. His resurrection curse ensures rebirth after apparent death, making conventional stakes and holy weapons completely ineffective. He's a one-man army capable of leveling nations through sheer cursed energy, blending medieval warfare with tragic immortality, overpowered all around. Akasha, the original progenitor with telekinetic mastery and pyrokinesis that incinerates entire palace crowds. She controls every lesser vampire on Earth through blood domination, and sunlight barely harms her. The only method of death from what we saw was like coordinated blood drain rituals, positioning her as a living deity worshipped by descendants. These two anchor the tier by proving vampirism has evolved into religion and elemental force. The Witcher 3's higher vampires like Regis and Detlef demonstrates what immunity to traditional weaknesses create. Sunlight, silver, and holy symbols don't do shit. They were formed from ash or mist after catastrophic damage, wielding shape-shifting and blood magic that rivals sorcerers. Detlef's transformation against Geralt shows a self-contained extinction-level event in human form, where enraged emotion becomes environmental destruction. Castlevania Nocturne's Elizabeth Bathory already believes she is the reincarnation of the Egyptian goddess Sekhmet, and channels solar blood and divine fire to become a daywalker powered by celestial magic, while Aurochs manipulates shadows and illusions. These abilities are cooking most vampires under this tier. Mass armies stand zero chance because only anti-divine relics or demonic counter rituals can even pull up on these savages. Twilight's main families flip durability expectations entirely, with diamond-hard granite bodies, immune to sunlight, and equipped with psychic gifts like Alice's foresight or Jane's pain projection. The Volturi standoff shows vampires moving faster than human eyes can track, overpowering werewolf packs and newborn armies without effort. Ripping their ass apart and burning everything becomes the only death methods, making them some of fiction's hardest vampires to kill without divine intervention. Vampire the Masquerade's elders and Methuselah's rule entire regions, might as well say countries at this point, invisibly through millennia refined disciplines like Dominate, Protean, and Thaumaturgy that grant mind control, shape-shifting, and blood sorcery. They use proxies and possess bodies to act during daylight, avoiding their one remaining weakness while treating humanity's war and empires as chessboards for manipulation. What brings this tier together is continental to global scale, where actions reshape climates, nations, and belief systems. Sunlight and silver have lost meaning. Only relics, curses, or unity among other immortals can destroy them. The night no longer hides these vampires because the entire world does. You're watching gods walk again. In tier 7, everything is just fucked. At this level, you either get in line or just die. We're talking a zero chance you're getting through this tier. This is where vampires stop being creatures and become fundamental forces of reality itself. The anchors here are Castlevania's Dracula and Hellsing Ultimate's Alucard, because they represent the ultimate expressions of vampiric power, one as creation and embodied destruction, the other as immortality perfected beyond comprehension. Dracula casts meteor storms that obliterate armies, reshape terrains through raw magical will, and his castle functions as a dimension-shifting fortress that phases between realities. He's destroyed through ritual sealing, but always reincarnates, sustaining an internal cycle that makes him functionally unkillable. His grief over Lisa's death weaponizes magic, intellect, and wrath into a force that commands global armies of night creatures. The Netflix series shows him lifting his entire castle through dimensions while simultaneously conducting genocidal war against humanity. He's not fighting for survival or territory anymore. That shit's a lock. He's expressing emotional devastation through apocalyptic power, making him the god of war. Alucard takes immortality to its logical extreme by hosting millions of absorbed souls as usable familiars, turning his death count into regeneration fuel. He endures beheadings, dismemberment, total molecular erasure, and eventually exists as an omnipresent consciousness that transcends physical form. Like goddamn. His release Form Zero sequence demonstrates this perfectly when he summons an army of absorbed victims flood London streets as manifestations of his consumed existence. Death becomes a resource rather than a threat, which is wild to say, and he alone chooses mortality through self-nullification because nothing external can force it. This positions him as immortality perfected, where the concept of killing him becomes meaningless since he exists outside traditional life and death boundaries. Klaus Mikaelson bridges mythic power with bloodline mechanics as the original hybrid, fusing vampire and werewolf genetics into a self-sustaining apex predator. Sunlight, silver, and decapitation become temporary setbacks rather than lethal vulnerabilities. His sireline connection means his death triggers extinction for thousands of vampires, making him a walking doomsday weapon that enemies can't actually eliminate without collateral annihilation. The Originals shows how his hybrid nature breaks every established weakness, forcing antagonists to find magical loopholes rather than direct confrontation. Klaus is packing up most vampires on this entire list. Dio, from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, combines vampirism with the World's Stand, granting time stop abilities that let him outpace bullets and manipulate destiny through temporal mastery. His regeneration and intelligence mitigate sunlight vulnerability to the point where he operates as a reality-bending force. The famous time stop battles show him moving through frozen moments, rewriting causality itself through sheer power and ambition that transcends mortal limitations. Cain from Legacy of Kain ascends to post-evolution vampire deity wielding telekinesis, temporal control, and elemental sorcery that reshapes entire continents. He's paradox-proof, meaning every death spawns alternate timelines or reincarnations that makes permanent erasure impossible. Even the Elder God can't eliminate him because he feeds on destiny rather than blood, embodying metaphysical vampirism where existence itself becomes sustenance. Again, this tier is broken. Vampire Hunter D operates as cosmic balance, a damn pure, possibly born from Dracula's lineage, who moves faster than plasma, fire, and destroys ancient noble technology. He resists mental control and enforces like a weird balance among immortals, serving as the god who hunts his own kind to maintain universal order. What separates this tier from everything below is how these beings break natural law rather than exploit it. There are no external weaknesses, only self-sacrifice, paradox manipulation, or divine intervention can halt these guys. Sunlight and stakes have become irrelevant footnotes in their existence. You're watching entities whose emotions reshape worlds, whose deaths spawn timelines, and whose very presence makes the night itself kneel in recognition of power that transcends vampirism into something cosmically absolute.